Hi everyone, welcome back to the channel. Today we arrive at one of the most important moments in the Bible. The first human choice. When most people think about Genesis chapter 3, they think about sin. And that is certainly part of the story. But as I was reading it again, I found myself focusing on something else. A choice, a decision, a moment when Adam and Eve had to decide who they would trust. And honestly, I think that question still matters today. Because every day, we make choices too. Life in the garden. Before everything went wrong, life in the Garden of Eden seemed beautiful. There was peace. There was abundance. There was no fear, no conflict, no suffering. God provided everything Adam and Eve needed. And there was only one command. They were told not to eat from one particular tree. At first glance, that seems simple. But sometimes the simplest choices become the most important ones. The voice of doubt. The turning point came when the serpent asked a question. Did God really say? That question caught my attention, because the serpent did not begin with a command. He began with doubt, a question, a suggestion, an invitation to question what God had said. And honestly, I think many struggles begin the same way, not with rebellion, but with uncertainty, a small doubt that slowly grows. The desire to decide for ourselves. As the conversation continued, Eve saw something attractive. The fruit looked good. It seemed desirable. It promised wisdom. And this is where the story became very human, because sometimes we want to decide for ourselves what is best. We want control. We want certainty. We want to choose our own path. Adam and Eve were not simply choosing a fruit. They were choosing whose voice they would trust. God's voice or another voice. One choice changed everything. Eventually, they made their decision, and the consequences were immediate. The world changed. Relationships changed. Fear entered the story. Shame entered the story. Pain entered the story. And yet what surprises me is how small the decision seemed at first. Just one moment, one choice, one act. But sometimes the choices that appear small can have a bigger impact than we expect. We still face similar choices. As I thought about this story, I realized something. Most of us may never stand in a garden with a forbidden tree, but we still face choices every day. Choices about honesty, choices about pride, choices about trust. Choices about whether we will follow God's wisdom or our own desires. The details look different, but the deeper question remains the same. Who will we trust? Something I learned personally. One lesson stood out to me while reading Genesis 3. Bad decisions rarely begin with bad intentions. Often they begin with small compromises, a small doubt, a small shortcut, a small excuse. And that is why wisdom matters. The story reminds me to pay attention to the direction of my heart, because small choices eventually become bigger ones. God did not abandon them. One part of the story gives me hope. After Adam and Eve sinned, God came looking for them. That surprised me. Even after their failure, even after their disobedience, God still sought them. He asked, "Where are you?" Not because he did not know, but because the relationship still mattered. And I think that is an important reminder. Human beings may run from God, but God continues reaching out to people. Final thoughts. When I read Genesis 3 now, I do not only see a story about failure. I see a story about choices, trust, consequences, and grace. The first human choice changed history, but it also teaches us something about our own lives. Every day we choose which voice we will follow. Every day we choose where we place our trust. Anyway, these are just my personal thoughts after reading Genesis chapter 3. Thank you so much for watching. Next time, we will explore another question. Why did Cain become angry? See you next time.